Hi, everyone. We didn't expect to be putting out another one of these episodes. We've got 2 in the can that we're putting out very soon. But there's been some big news in our community in the past week, and we thought that we should get together and chat a little bit about this announcement that came out in the Burning Man's Burning Man journal for burners just the other day.
So this is an Accuracy third burn barrel burning hot take podcast supplemental emergency action call to arms.
I'm going to have to change like the season and episode numbers on the episodes that we're already done with to accommodate shoving this in. So thanks, Burning Man, for giving me some more work.
And I'm Rex.
Oh, no, Beth, say you're D-Day.
I'm D-Day.
And I'm Beth, and this is Accuracy Third.
We are gathered here today to talk about the grand announcement that came out in Jackrabbit Speaks that
the journal, the
journal, the several grand announcements.
Oh, yeah.
It was plural, and they're all, in this humble narrator's opinion, pretty freaking great.
You're a host, not a narrator.
I can be both.
Yeah. So what are the major changes?
So we'll start with all of the other ones and end with the one that is like most direct to us. There's a change to the FOMO sale. You can no longer buy a whole big tranche of tickets early just because you have the sort of access to capital that lets you buy a tranche of tickets at $1,000 a piece in January.
You know, I think it's time that the org admits getting the tickets can be just as difficult and frustrating as Burning Man. Mm-hmm. Like you're committed to some inconvenience for this ticket now.
I think until your development department is really up and running as a young nonprofit, it behooves you to sell something like tickets at an extraordinary price rate to help
everything else.
Just to make sure that you've got a couple times a year, you know you're getting big lump sums of money.
I have no problem with them being willing to charge much more for rich people. And hey, rich people, if you have that kind of money and that's how you want to spend it, I support you. Thank you for supporting this event that I like by spending more money on the tickets.
Yeah, it would be super cool though, if like you called your Congress people and asked to be taxed at a much higher tax rate, because that's actually how your money can help people. Donating to nonprofits is a really inefficient and stupid way to do so.
Said from a man who manages nonprofits.
Yep. Yeah. Believe it or not, like before Reagan destroyed the social safety net in the 80s, it was better for people who needed to access government services than it is now. Yeah. Believe it or not, some rich fuck from LA saying that it's a problem when the government comes calling is maybe someone who doesn't need the help of the government.
So Burning Man has made it so you can't buy a bunch of tickets at the expensive price. And, right, you have to register everyone who's getting a ticket?
Yeah, they are now the exact same stipulations as the normal sale. They just cost more, and you get to have them a couple of months earlier, which I think is great. Like that's fine. I don't care when you get to buy your tickets. If you want to pay a bunch of money for having them a little early and support the rest of this event, and you can afford it, more power to you. But the fact that you can't buy a bunch of them and sell them to your rich asshole friends as part of a package vacation, that is what I'm all about.
Is that, dear listener friends, I have not bought a ticket in years. And if I have bought a ticket, it has been through my department because I got staff tickets, which were a different price because of volunteering. So I haven't actually gone through the sale in a really long time. But I thought they'd already switched over to one person, one ticket, non-transferable, or is this the first time?
Yes, that's how standard ticketing works. Mm-hmm. What they've done is move the FOMO sale over to the same rules as standard ticketing. It used to be that part of the shtick of this price is that you could get them in bulk, but that ended up being a key feeder to the turnkey camping problem.
Yeah.
And the other big step that they're taking that they announced to step on this same turnkey problem is that they're disallowing on-site delivery of RVs and other commercial rentals. So just
scaffolding vendors can't come in with their big flatbed truck. All of this is a lot of wear and tear on our road infrastructure. It's probably good that we don't have quite as many semis just running in and out as the theme camps start showing up.
And it works against radical self-reliance.
Yeah.
We can get that stuff that we need out to Playa if we do the work. Burning Man isn't about hiring other people to do the work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't, I appreciate the like, hey, this is hard and inconvenient. That's what it is. You can't pay your way around it, although you absolutely still can. If you're wealthy enough, you can pay your fucking way around anywhere, anyone.
But maybe it doesn't have to be so easy for your camp to be so fucking fancy.
If you're like wealthy enough to throw a camp and facilitate all of your friends getting to Burning Man and you're showing your largesse, that's one thing. If you think it's totally cool to make a business out of selling trips to Burning Man to rich assholes, get the fuck out our city.
Yeah.
That's
Pretty good.
That one's straightforward. Good job, the org.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is well needed, long time coming. I liked the way that they talked about it.
Yeah, way to make it as difficult as possible for someone to sell Kendall Roy a curated 40th birthday party at Black Rock City. Appreciate that.
And there was some more general language about changes that they are still in the process of making to ticketing and outreach to make the entire event more diverse
placement
and inclusive. Oh, yeah, and placement is starting earlier. They're asking theme camps to be unique. I'm curious how that will be implemented and what the end result will be.
Maybe you can't just say we'll be providing a bar, but you need to actually have a theme.
For sure. I doubt they're going to say that specific functionality needs to be unique. Like, I'm sure we'll still have lots of bars.
Yeah.
One bar, one bowling camp.
But
that street.
I have noticed a bunch of convergent thinking, like, how many damn giant Jenga games at the same time have we seen on Playa?
I mean,
never finished. Never. Never. The Jenga listeners, fucking seal your Jenga pieces. Look at a Jenga piece. Is that rough wood? It's not.
if you're gonna do
Glossy.
a low effort, bring out a trampoline. Bring out something that we can get hurt on. Your cut up pieces of 2x4 are not enough.
Yeah, Jenga's got to be hardwood. Like, it has to be smooth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It can't be some fucking 2x4 pieces of pine that immediately lose all their moisture and split and warp when you bring them out to Playa.
Not unless you're willing to put in like 6 months of applying coats of varnish.
Well, I mean,
that thing
just
needs
not
to be
for
a
Jenga,
lacquered
not
hunk.
for a balancing game.
All we're saying is Burning Man Jenga makers, do better.
Well,
Do better.
Do something more
better.
interesting.
I think it's funny that like they're like, well, placement and uniqueness, and I'm like, did we ever know how you were doing placement in the first place? Like, I thought, like, I knew they did a big push to move people through the city more at some point, where they were trying to get more theme camps deeper in the city. But like, I always thought placement was a series of mistakes that are constantly being caught up for.
That's only because you haven't been involved in getting placed as a theme camp in a while.
Right. I was involved in getting places as theme camp.
As was I, and I know that the process when I did it was somewhat rigorous, and that it's gotten much more involved since.
Oh,
It was pretty cool like 12, 13 years ago now. It's fine. It's filling out municipal forms.
like, honestly, my camp got placement because we were a delivery camp, and we were just like, hey, we need to have a location that we're telling people that they can come. It was for Green Man, so we were doing biodiesel, like trying to affect the footprint going out to Playa. And they were like, you guys aren't really big enough for a theme camp. And we're like, yo, we need an address, though. We don't really need to be anywhere. We just need an address.
Yeah.
And we had great placement that year. It was a great neighborhood.
I think you always get great placement unless you don't get the placement that you thought you were going to get or expected or thought you needed. Like, it's all a part of Black Rock City. There are people always living around you who will move past you if you're doing something compelling and have some sort of frontage that draws people in. You'll have a good time.
There are no bad blocks, just bad intersections.
I bet we could find some. Hey, listeners, if you have placement nightmares you would like to share with us, we're all ears.
And what is the wrong side of the tracks at Burning Man?
We all know that's the 3 o'clock side.
It's the 3 o'clock side.
We know this.
But only because that's the way that dust ends up.
But the people over there are real converts to that side. They really are, like, into it.
What are you going to do? Shit talk your own hood?
I think the dust keeps the riffraff out to some degree. And so that's a bonus. Only the hardcore. And the stupid.
Yeah, the newbies.
Uh-huh.
And the people who get placed.
Is it all like this?
In a way.
The meat of the thing, the thing that that one guy on Reddit is.
Oh, is there
clamoring
something
to
big
hear.
that's affecting all of us and our immediate Burning Man community?
There is.
Tell.
There absolutely is. There is, and we're going to be really cautious on this, listeners, because this is a topic with a lot of raw emotions out there amongst our particular peer group, and we have all the space in the world for how change is impacting our friends and chosen family.
What change?
The change of which I speak is that at least for this year, there will be no beverage service in Center Camp Cafe.
What the fuck?
Yep. I suppose there are listeners to this program who've not actually heard the news otherwise. The coffee shop component of Center Camp Cafe has been put on hold for 2022 with its future big question mark.
So that's no beverage service at all, not just no sales, but as far as we know, no
There's no
liquids
information
at all.
about that.
What the coffee shop as it has been in the past will not be this year. Nothing will be for sale in Center Camp. So participants should not expect to be able to get coffee in a paper cup in Center Camp Cafe for money. The reasons that were cited in the journal were like threefold, essentially. The first was that it seems to be less in demand over the past several years. The actual sales of coffee have gone down year over year for the past couple of years, and the lines have been shorter. They've been using less product. The journal assumes that this has to do basically with the fact that the city has become bigger, more vibrant, more self-sufficient. You can get coffee all over the place for free. Why would you want to come and wait in a long line to buy it? They also discussed the environmental impact of coffee shop, which was significant. It took enormous quantities of fuel to power the operation back there. Listeners might not know how power hungry an espresso machine is.
And the refrigerated trucks.
And the refrigerated trucks, they consume huge amounts of energy.
You have to put a lot of energy into water to make it boil.
And the thing generated a ton of plastic and paper waste. It was a big old undertaking. You
guys.
Just the humongous, disgusting dumpsters that we had in the backyard, like just that level of garbage created.
I just realized we can get rid of the tetanus flowers.
Yes.
We can fully throw them in the ghost ship and wait for them to come back another year to see if we ever do it again, I suppose.
And you can probably pick up that the three of us are all generally in favor of this change.
We've been talking about this for years as a way that it made sense. It's also just I don't know about you guys. It's really incongruous for me to handle money out there. So I just dislike that whole bit of it quite a bit.
That was the third thing cited in the journal post, is that while the cafe doesn't really violate the decommodification principle, it's off. It does not really match our social ethic. The decommodification model has often been shorthanded to no vending. In fact, I think that language is contained within the full description of decommodification. And there's no particular reason that anybody coming to Burning Man should have any expectation that they can buy a cup of coffee there. That's just not what the event is about. Ice makes sense because not everybody can get refrigeration handled at the event, and it is a week in the desert.
Food shouldn't spoil. If you make the poor decision to bring out food that can spoil and we don't have ice, that is a much bigger problem than us
That's
selling
a health
ice.
issue.
Hopefully at cost. I imagine at cost.
Yeah, that is very cheap. I've bought bulk ice before where the event is selling it essentially at cost. Maybe even at a loss considering how much fuel it takes to keep that truck refrigerated.
I was just thinking, we've been watching the community sort of respond. There's a whole bunch of comments on this. If I've never read the journal, sorry guys, I don't read the journal.
That's my job.
Yeah. But if you see the journal article, there's now 80 some odd comments about people going over the suggested changes. And a lot of the sadness about coffee shop being gone is I liked working there and it was an easy place to start being a volunteer, which is all really valid. Yeah.
And that's why despite where the three of us happen to sit on this decision, if this is a sad moment for you, I have to tell you, I totally understand why.
I'm very concerned as to what that means for our community out there, what that means for Cafe Village.
The crew that we're on camps directly with the people who are staying, the main workers at the cafe. And there's people from all over the city who come in and work a shift or two for funsies, but a lot of the people who, that's what they're doing out there live in our village with us.
Yeah, you have to work a certain number of shifts or lead a certain number of shifts. There's a bunch of rules. But basically, if you are instrumental in the day-to-day running of the Center Camp Cafe coffee shop, you camp with us and you are a part of our...
If you choose to.
Yeah, you don't have to.
You don't have to. But there are people.
Yeah.
There are people, and so it... Honestly, working a shift in cafe is what pulled me into this department. I worked in the cafe for the first several years. The shifts were mostly fun for me, but I also managed a bunch of those shifts, and I can tell you that there are a lot of people for whom those shifts proved not to be a lot of fun. Just like any other volunteer work, it's
hit or miss.
It's hit or miss.
It's going to be
great for some. Others are going to find it just
intolerable.
But for those for whom it clicked, a lot of them, like me, kind of found, as I said, our chosen family. I absolutely found that in cafe. I mean, the two of you, we all met through this volunteer thing. As so many of the people we love.
Well, Beth and I have a separate history that we went over last year, but we all grew closer.
The two of you, I both met through the thing.
But it's funny, and I'm just going to be brutally honest. I never fucking remember anyone from coffee shop. We get there and we build it, and then suddenly there's an influx of 100 younger, attractive. I was texting with Andy about it, and I was Andy's well, I'm going to be married by then, so we don't actually need the coffee shop volunteers anymore. That's my dear scummy friend Andy's time to hit on everything.
Well, to be fair, our work week and their work week doesn't overlap. So while they're working hard, we're out enjoying the fruits of our labor.
And while we're working hard, they're not there yet.
Yeah, exactly. Or they're getting there and setting up and doing trainings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've discovered I'm much more carefree and attractive during the event as opposed to when I'm working.
Yeah, you're rarely carefree when you're working.
Thanks.
I blame the singlets. You should
There's
really
only
be
one.
looser on the job.
I have many more onesies than singlets.
Yeah. I don't.
Jumpers, jumpsuits.
This
You
was-
don't what, Beth?
This was something that the three of us were sitting around talking about as a good move for the cafe years and years ago. Like, just because it does seem silly to, I mean, for me, the money thing is just so pointless. It's like, but why have money if you don't need to out there? And I just don't buy that exchanging money makes people more comfortable with the situation.
I don't think that's really the case.
This is the sort of line that got sold for why we kept it going. So
Yeah.
it originally started as a person brought it out. It was her coffee shop.
Yeah, before the days of no vending, Miss P, who ran the, I think it's Cafe Voltaire, she came out in the early days and threw up a little pop-up coffee stand that people paid for because no vending didn't become a thing until several years later.
Yeah, I mean, that all started pre-ticketing, I thought.
Yeah. And it just ended up being the thing that was in the middle of the map on the ring road. And when Miss P stopped doing it, the org just kept it up. And I think in the initial stages, the org's budget wouldn't have permitted them to continue doing it without charging for the goods. And by the time, and by the org, I mean, it was just like those 6 people back then. By the time decommodification and no vending was the rule of the day, inertia had taken over. And this was just our opportunity to finally
Break that inertia.
And stop doing a thing that really served no purpose. I know people ascribe some purpose to it. I know that Larry had entirely justified romantic notions of the coffee house as a foundation of bohemian culture, a concept I have huge affinity with, but it's not the transactional nature of coffee that makes it a
bringing
foundation
together
of
or
Bohemia.
common area or common place where people understand what they're doing. Like that's, and I don't know, because I never spoke to Larry. I've never even met Larry, but like the way that I hear the argument described is it makes people feel more comfortable, more grounded, like that they are in a world that they can understand, and that is somehow good. I agree. I love that there's a place like Center Camp Cafe is a place where there's always shade and there's always performances and there's always people sitting around, and it's a place you can go and be that isn't your camp at any time you want, which to me feels more like that thing than like remembering that I need to bring $5 out with me when I go out, because later I'm going to want a hot chocolate.
I mean, I think that if the Center Camp Cafe is important as Burning Man's lobby and a safe transitory space, the fact that there are performance stages there is enough. We've been
And
going
art.
to and an art gallery. Yeah. And like people who are friendly and knowledgeable.
And I think there are
And where else are you going to dump your bicycle at the end of the event? Like, that is the absolute, look at all those bike racks just ready for you to dump your bike right on them.
This does open a space to reorient towards hospitality and inclusion while maintaining the vibe of a cafe. The org could absolutely afford to keep a cooler full of hot mint tea going.
This is
all the
this
time.
is Rex's sell.
this
Rex
is-
is
yeah,
like,
thi-
we should give out tea, coffee, straightforward, bring your own cup. Here are urns of it.
Yeah,
Help yourself.
Legit, this is a pitch. So if any of you at the org still listen, this is my pitch for the space. It would be a tiny outlay to get a big commercial brewer and then some mint leaves and coffee beans, maybe, and just keep big urns stocked with a skeleton crew of a dozen or so volunteers who are just there to brew coffee and like chat with people. No
Yeah.
cups, no sugar, no cream, just hot liquids that you can fill your container with.
It's funny. I hadn't quite put it that way. The last few good interactions that I had in the cafe were always like, it's pretty empty, and there's someone behind the counter having a long conversation with someone who came up to get coffee, and they're just talking about everything. I will say that I will miss the opportunity to stop in and get something hot on the way back. We didn't pay for them, though, because we're assholes who are privileged. So I didn't have to touch dirty money. I just had to find snow cone.
And show him our Larry Bucks.
And show him our Larry Bucks.
Larry Bucks went a long way back in the day.
The year I left, the year that I hooked up with Rex. So that was a rough year. I didn't know how to.
I am a strong drug, ladies and gentlemen. You'll get hooked fast, but the initial few weeks are hard.
I hadn't been to Burning Man in years, and I landed face first. That's how I got Drunk Beth as the name. Was that year. A series of rough landings, and then falling stupidly in love with someone that I was like, I'm pretty sure this can work. I don't know. And the day I was leaving, which is usually on like Thursday or Friday, I was waiting for Andy to finish packing up, and I walked down to the cafe, and I had like a coupon. We sometimes got coupons for coffee. So I had like a coupon, and
Larry Bucks.
Yeah, and I grabbed my coffee and I sat down on those terrible wooden benches with all those pillows and like just started crying. You know, it's that kind of time when you're exhausted and everything is both completely right and completely wrong at the same time. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, the feeling of leaving Burning Man. And like, I just had like a series of people like check in with me.
Just neighbors?
Yeah, like people walk by. One guy sat down next to me and was like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "I'm all right. I'm actually really good." You know, but like the weird openness of it, you know, and that's Burning Man everywhere. But it was something that I remember really distinctly at that cafe. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's not edgy. It's not strange. It's just like where you can go and be around people.
It's so funny. You say that to me, and now it occurs to me that I've been on the other side of that interaction at least a few times at Burning Man.
Where you sit down next to someone crying.
Yeah, you just find somebody who's just overwrought, and you're like, "Are you okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, this is great. I have to go." Thank you. And then on you go.
Yeah. And I think that was my first big interaction in the cafe, because I avoided it too during the week because we worked there all week. And because I didn't want to really deal with any of the money stuff. I didn't want to go buy coffee.
In talking about all of this Larry Bucks thing, I'm realizing another reason why I spent so much time staying away from the coffee shop is because it was years of working for Center Camp Cafe, helping set up the coffee shop before I found out that there were those pogs that give you a cup of free coffee, and no one had ever extended me one.
Oh, yeah.
No one told me that I could go to the coffee shop and like ask for a coffee.
Oh, it was
spending all year building it.
It was definitely a good 2 years into my volunteer before anyone actually handed me one of those things.
And none of us wanted to go back there anyway.
Yeah, but you know,
all
it would be. It's nice to be invited.
We were there every night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's you know, it's in the center of our orbit.
Yeah, it's pretty close to where we camp, and it's on the way in from everything that is out.
Yeah.
But it's like, I can understand a lot of the sadness of it going, especially if it was, I mean, like, I'm kind of excited because it doesn't directly touch my crew. It's so funny. Like, my first thought when I heard that was going on, I was like, doesn't impact me. Our team's fine. So.
Well, I mean, it almost certainly will impact the size of our crew.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people who identify so closely with volunteering for setup crew or cleanup crew or performance stages or coffee shop or any team that you work for or any art project that you work for. And we don't know what's the plan is to deal with several hundred, 1,000 displaced volunteers.
I think 1,000 folds in like everybody who's
ever done it.
Occasional shifts, and I don't think they're going to feel that displaced.
So a couple hundred people in the
So, beloved listeners, if you had it in your mind to come work at a shift at Cafe, please know that they always need your help at Playa Info, Arctica, and Greeters.
Census and Lamplighters.
There are a ton of extremely easy, satisfying ways to volunteer, all of which will make you lovely connections. Just grab a different team. There's always going to be a fun option for you.
I definitely feel like it would be good if the org reached out to the people who stay at the village, who work a lot of shifts, who are strongly paired with coffee shop to try to help them find other volunteer opportunities.
That sort of stuff is already
in the works.
Yeah, there are things on the books.
I wouldn't assume that they're...
I was saying we should auction them off, cute first, then competent, and we can just auction them off to greeters, box office, and lamplighters.
I mean, I don't think that there's a reason to despair that, like, we're losing a bunch of cafe volunteers.
No,
we might be. There might be a whole new idea that is still going to need, like, 60 to 120 people to fulfill during the event.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we need to lose any volunteers from the department who don't have another volunteer opportunity they're eager to get to.
Maybe I'm wrong.
We have a hard time sometimes because we have people who are like, I'm coming to volunteer with you guys, and then I'm leaving immediately to volunteer with my theme camp all week.
But I think there's probably going to be plenty of work to go around and some exciting new opportunities that we just don't know the shape of yet.
Yeah.
Maybe having to do with org listening to my brilliant idea. It's a brilliant idea, guys.
Yeah, and at the very least, we know how to brew coffee, and the coffee at commissary is detrimental to our health.
We could also get a big, giant brewer very cheap. Very cheap. There is so much used restaurant equipment out there. The pandemic happened, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no shit. I think it's interesting. Like, it just reminds me of when we're doing Burning Man all the time. I get, like, we have a very habitual way of doing Burning Man. I have done Burning Man in the same basic way since like 2011, which is I go and I work and then I party until I fall down and then I'm really tired and I go home.
That's Burning Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can understand both being sad and being kind of excited about where you might end up finding a new place.
And I've seen a lot of comments that are exactly that mix.
Yeah.
And once again,
but we really need to have a party. This is the thing. We we need to like do a grand style morning of it at Burning Man this year. Like we've got to like celebrate it. I think that's part of what I hear in the pain from people who are like, years of my work and this thing is so special and important to me. I mean, I wish they could phrase it that way, like this is special and important to me, instead of being like, how dare you?
Things change.
How dare you?
I mean, it's scary. It's scary, and it doesn't feel good to just find out about it.
Yeah.
Out of the blue.
Mm-hmm. It's hard not to feel ambushed and picked on. For anybody who's hurting out there, we get it. You have big audio hugs from us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
and hey,
you just got your crutches kicked out from under your armpits. Like your training wheels were just taken off. Like your ticket for the event is now up in the air. Like you don't have a plan necessarily, and that's scary. And I'm very, very sorry that there are people who are in that position. And I hope that there is a way to assure people that this is the way that they are able to come out to experience the event, that there's still a path for coffee shop volunteers who may be left in the lurch.
Yeah.
still get to the event.
That's also something to point out is when you worked a certain amount in cafe, you could get a free ticket or and if you work cleanup. And guys, honestly, these volunteer roles are kind of how we get people who aren't rich out there. Like if you come and meet the people who are volunteering, you might notice that there's a distinct difference in
Class.
I was going to say Instagram grade.
Yeah.
Class.
So one of the ways that the coffee shop, if you showed up and were reliable, you could probably get yourself a free ticket just by working at the coffee shop.
Or at least a path to a ticket.
A path to a ticket.
A path to a ticket.
Yeah, that was kind of what I first got when I started getting offered anything, because doing setup was like, if you get tickets and show up to work, we will accept you. Like your first round through. It's usually not like, here, have a ticket. But what it did was make it so that I could buy a ticket, not be in the main sale, be like, yeah, I'm a volunteer. I get to buy my ticket through the volunteer channel.
Yeah, and the only reason that it was like that is because we used to give tickets to people for volunteering at the cafe, and then they would take that ticket and they would never show up to help set up the cafe.
Yes.
And it was before all of that was run with like Wi-Fi on computers out in the desert, and there was no way to cancel that ticket.
Yeah.
That ticket was just in somebody's hands, and that somebody left you in the lurch.
Yeah. So I really hope the org reaches out to that group of people and helps them find other departments and resources and ways for them to actually continue to like give their time and energy to Burning Man.
Or maybe don't even fret it, because our department might still just like need all the hands it can get. You know, just because you've been slinging bean for the past couple of seasons doesn't mean we don't have like other very important work for you to do.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty true.
Like, seriously, I don't think any of our other teams is anything like fully
staffed. Hey,
Never.
do you like sound engineering? Can you tolerate hours and hours of random people coming up and playing music?
Would you like to paint a bench? Or, well, actually, let me take that back.
dig a trench.
Would you like to wash a bench? Maybe once or twice, and then paint a bench.
And, you know, we might have during event opportunities to help curate that space during the event in a way that you're not really doing when you're selling coffee. That thing is so much more an art gallery than it is.
So you're saying we need to hop on there like, hey, let's do performance art in the city, and say like, hey, let's do performance art in the cafe.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that was in the journal post, is that they're going to be doing work to encourage performance art. And I think we have a built-in performance art environment.
This is going to make my favorite game at Burning Man even more complicated. Super higher performance art.
The answer is always yes.
Yeah, I like the idea of the cafe being like the beating heart of 360 degrees of just no matter what, it's a flash mob.
Okay, guys.
Crap.
We have 8 months to figure out how we're going to get Sleep No More up in there.
That's above my pay grade.
I mean, Sleep No More is a good one. They just shoved their audiences around through somewhat dangerous spaces.
We're all wearing masks anyway.
Yeah. You know, the only thing that I think might be smarter than stopping coffee for center camp is let's stop carpeting it. Can we suggest that next? Who has carpet these days and age? Let's just stop it.
I mean, we have carpet to help deal with all of the traffic. And I think, I don't know.
I'm
I
just
don't know
joking.
The excuses for
I was
carpet.
just like, plumbing was one of the hardest, most annoying things that we got done there. And then maybe we'll still plumb it. Who knows? But like,
that amount of plumbing was so much work.
yeah.
The amount of trenching for plumbing is so much work.
Yeah, if you
I'm
don't
not
have
for
espresso
us, for the
machines,
real people who know what they're doing,
like
the plumbing is work.
Even if the org bought full force into my idea, it would be a lot less plumbing, because you can do it all in one giant batch brewer. You don't need a bunch of espresso machines, a bunch of brewers.
Do you guys want to talk about neat things you've seen in coffee shop? Not while we're building, but like while it was functioning. Like, I don't know if it has to involve the commerce or selling coffee.
I actually have a great bit of commerce. I worked a ton of graveyard shifts when I was working coffee shop, which, were cold and somewhat boring, and you got to know your coworkers, co-volunteers. And one night, way the shit early in the morning, with nothing else going on, these two dudes bop in like over the top formal generals jackets with all the fucking ribbons and medals and big epaulets and shit, with giant zebra head masks on.
Nice.
And they come bopping up to the counter, and they buy their coffee, and then they tip everybody in $5 billion Zimbabwe dollar bills.
I don't know about that.
It was great. Here's $1 billion. Maybe it was $1 million. It ridiculous giant.
During the inflation period of yeah. D-Day, do you have like a fond memory that is of the coffee shop portion up and running?
I think my biggest experience with the coffee shop is the first day of the event, right before we have our party. And we have our opening of the cafe as the coffee shop has opened on the first day of the event. And we call out to all of the folks that are in line and are doing contact juggling or
remind
two
the dirty
people
hippies
yoga
to say thank you.
Yeah, to say thank you to all of the people who built this space for them. And I always really enjoy that first day of the event, my first true day off, when I walk into the backyard for the last time and I hand my radio and my keys back to whoever is there to take them. And I walk from the backyard of the coffee shop through all of the newly trained, really excited, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed volunteers who are, cycling up their year of making coffee and serving folks and giving advice and snark to the participants. And, I'm really excited to volunteer at Burning Man in a way that I wouldn't have been 2 years ago. This enforced 2-year break from the last 9 years of my volunteer management gig that has been very good for me and my relationship with the cafe and my newfound excitement to go to Burning Man and build this thing. But, it's scary. We don't know what it's going to be like, and it's not going to feel the same.
It's not. It never feels the same, but it's also going to feel the same. 'Cause we're going home. Whew. That's like a wisdom tooth extraction, right there. Like it's part of you. You made it. You don't hate it, but if you don't get rid of it, it's not going to get any better.
It's going to infect your whole jaw.
with rotten coffee grounds and tetanus spikes.
Happy holidays, everyone. I'm really sorry that you got this news like in the second week of December. That's super shitty. Hey, have a good holiday, and we will figure out the next sort of Center Camp Cafe that we will be building. And maybe we'll make a bunch of mistakes this year. We probably will. And correcting that, we're going to make completely different mistakes next year. And that's exciting. And I hope as many of you as possible are along for the ride with us.
Oh, God, you guys, going back to actual in-place productions and stuff like that, everyone is so slow and rusty. And it's so difficult to do the stuff that we used to do all the time. I'm a little bit like, yeah, next year at Burning Man is going to be slow and rusty.
I think so, but like I could do this job in my sleep and have oftentimes.
But you're not doing it anymore.
All those volunteers. Just give us all. You want to come volunteer? There's still work at the cafe. It's just not behind an espresso machine.
Yeah. And I'm still a brain trust.
And I'm still Rex.
Yeah, and I'm Beth.
I'm D-Day.
That was Accuracy Third. Bye.